to Valiant Effort, Episode 7. My name is Josh.
And I'm Nick. The name of this episode is Renegades.
So, Nick, last weekend was Free Comic Book Day.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Free Comic Book Day is this awesome event that you should participate in next year. Stores around the country have free comic books that they hand out to different people who come into their store. But you should always buy something when you're at the store because the comic books are not free to the retailers.
Okay, so it should be fair.
To be fair, you should always buy something when you go in. Valiant had 2 offerings for Free Comic Book Day. One was a preview book of some of the events that are happening later this year. And the other one, which was really, really spectacular, was a handbook. Basically, it was an encyclopedia of different Valiant characters. So, yeah.
That's cool. It's kind of almost kind of like your timeline. In a way, it's not your timeline, but it's an encyclopedia. Like your timeline's kind of like an encyclopedia-ish type of thing.
Boy, that would be really cool if somebody would publish my timeline.
I thought you tried to do that.
Yeah, if people are interested, maybe I'll make an effort. But yeah, so it's kind of like DC Comics did a Who's Who, where they have the character name and their first appearance and what kind of powers they have. And I would be willing to bet that we'll see some of these entries in the back of some of the trades going ahead. I think that would be a pretty neat thing if Valiant did that. Free Comic Book Day is really, really neat. I work on Saturdays because I manage a mattress store that we're sitting in. So I've never been able to go to Free Comic Book Day. But my wife, she's wonderful, and she takes the kids and they go around. The kids have a great time. They get free comic books and a lot of places. She went to 4 different stores this year, and she made me make a list to make sure that she bought something everywhere. One of the stores that she went to had cake for the kids, and it's a great time. The kids had a great time.
Maybe next year I'll be going to Free Comic Book Day with you, which would be pretty cool.
That would be.
Now, my turn. I was going to talk about the saga of my tooth, but nobody cares about that. Do you remember one of the first few episodes I talked about the comic books that I've actually read?
You said that you had Batman, which you brought in.
Right.
And you said you had a DuckTales, and you said that you had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yes. I found the Batman one, but I didn't find the other ones until today. I found my comic books just about half an hour to an hour ago. Eastman and Laird's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: The Secret of the Ooze, the official movie adaptation.
This is awful.
But it's awesome.
It's drawn in Eastman did it.
It's Eastman and Laird's Turtles version of The Secret of the Ooze, the Turtles 2 movie, the live action, in comic book form, which is great.
Oh no, it was drawn in his style. It was drawn by Jim Lawson.
Well, yeah. I just found this half an hour to 30 minutes ago. Yes,
this is great. Well, there's Vanilla Ice. Nice. Go Ninja, go.
And I got my Looney Tunes one here.
Oh, Looney Tunes, very nice.
With Donald
Bugs Bunny number 3.
and the cover's missing on this one. I don't really know what it's called or anything, but it's got the Martian in it. It's got the Rooster, Elmer Fudd.
Foghorn Leghorn.
That's it, Foghorn Leghorn. And then I forgot about this one, Count Duckula, issue number 10. And it's like a little trade because I flipped through it real quickly, and it said the end about halfway through, and then it started a new book.
Oh, it's little short stories.
Yeah.
Count Duckula. This is embarrassing.
It's awesome.
No, the condition of these comics is
Marvel
embarrassing.
it's Marvel Comics. Yeah. Well, I didn't care. I still really don't care.
Well, the Secret of the Ooze one is very neat. That is very cool.
And it's in the best condition because it's been on flat surface for many, many, many years, so it's almost as if it has never been read.
I expect you to read it. I want a full report on
that
next episode.
Sure, yeah. I'll get right on it.
I'd like to introduce a new segment to our show.
Okay.
The other Valiant podcasts, which are all great, have they're talking about things that are a little bit more current than we are because we're not quite caught up. And they all of them, they have news segments where they tell news about things that are happening in Valiant. So I would like to do a new segment called Vague News, where I want to briefly talk about something, but try not to spoil it for Nick.
Okay.
So there's two things that I want to bring up. One, since the last time we talked, Rye #1 came out. I say this with full confidence, Nick, that when we get to Rye, that will be your favorite Valiant title.
I think you told me that about a week ago.
Yeah. It was incredible. The art was fantastic. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because this is vague news.
Okay.
The other thing is that Valiant is releasing an RPG, much like Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, right.
And I think it would be really fun if you, me, and two more buddies of mine got together and we played a game and we recorded it and we could put little segments of it on our shows as they're coming up.
Oh, okay.
But we can't play it. We can't play it for a couple episodes because it refers to storylines that you haven't gotten to yet.
Oh.
So that's why I'm being vague there, but I think it would be kind of fun. Have you ever played like a Dungeons and Dragons type of game?
I've played actual role-playing back in the day.
Yeah.
And I have a game called Heroes Quest, which is
You played role-playing video games.
As well,
yeah.
Yes. No, but I've also played like actual pen and paper.
Oh, okay.
Role-playing, but that was a long time ago.
I have played Dungeons and Dragons once. Our friend Brady, he's played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons, and our friend Tyler has played a little bit, and he has a good knowledge of the Valiant universe, at least the current version of it, because I'm giving him the stories as they go along. So I think it would be kind of fun if the four of us played.
That'd be neat. I'm up for it.
Cool. Kris finds herself in an awkward situation when she realizes she's being followed by both Project Rising Spirit and the Harbinger Foundation. Furthermore, Pete, whom she hates, is still trying to be a part of her life. But Kris sees an opportunity to use Pete to help her affect change in the world. She agrees to team up with him in Faith, and they begin searching for other Syots. The three meet Flamingo, a dancer in a strip club, whose life isn't going quite the way she wants. Peter activates Flamingo's Syot ability, which is to manipulate and create fire, and after getting revenge on her abusive boyfriend, she joins up with the Renegades. Peter and the gang then find Torque, a crippled young man. Peter activates him just as PRS agents begin attacking the group. Torque is able to create a strong, invincible shell around himself, but the PRS forces prove to be too much, and the young Syots are overwhelmed. Faith is the only one who is not captured by PRS. She realizes it's up to her to save the group, and without being caught, she frees Peter. Peter pretends to still be incapacitated and is brought on board a PRS helicopter. Peter escapes while in the air, and Faith frees the other three who are on board a different helicopter. After an intense battle aboard the aircrafts, Peter and the rest of the Renegades escape.
First thing I noticed is that the art changed again.
The art changes in every issue in this.
Yeah, I've noticed that, and it's really difficult for me to get into the story a little bit when the art keeps changing.
That throws you off?
It does throw me off.
Yep.
Is this the only story where this keeps happening?
So what happened here is they Valiant hired an artist, and I guess for whatever reason he was not able to do all the books, so they had to piece it together a little bit. This is the only no, this happens again. It doesn't happen often, but there are times when it happens, and it can be very distracting. It's more distracting when it's in an individual issue as opposed to like issue to issue where there's breaks. We'll see in an episode coming up in the future where it happens a lot in the middle of a particular issue in that story, which is annoying. Were you able to recover?
Yeah, the middle books, I think the second, third, and fourth ones were all pretty much uniform for me. And even the fifth one. But the first one was the biggest one for me. As soon as I finished reading the first one, I was fine. I still don't like Kris's design in the first book. The glasses she wears are just ridiculous. They make her look like she has alien eyes. I don't like those glasses. And Peter in this one looks like he's in his 40s and he's supposed to be a teenager. I couldn't get over that part. It makes it difficult for me to read the story because I'm trying to figure out who a new person might be when it's somebody I already met. You know, like Chris's dad in the first book. I honestly thought at the end of the first book that her mom was having an affair on her dad because the dad's character looked so different from the beginning to the end. So it was hard for me to discern between the two. And as soon as I got done with book one and then it seemed a little bit more fleshed out in the rest of this trade, I was set to go. It was just the first one was a little off-putting.
Normally, I try to say who all the artists, who the artist and the writer are. There's a lot in this. This story is written by Josh Dysart. He's the Harbinger writer and will be for the foreseeable future. The first book was penciled by Phil Briones. The second book was penciled by Barry Kitson and Lee Garbett. The third book by Lee Garbett. The fourth book by Perez. And the fourth book had 4 artists: Matthew Clark, Alvaro Martinez, Brian Thies, and Dimi Macheras. I'm sorry, I'm butchering some names. Perry Perez and Lee Garbett and Barry Kitson, we see a lot of their art going forward. And those were the middle artists. So that's interesting that you particularly pointed out that you like the middle art. Those are the ones that we see in the future doing work.
Well, that's good. That's my favorite kind.
Besides the art changing, were you at all thrown off while you read this that each of the different stories focused on a different character?
I was at first. I was a little annoyed at the fact that Kris was narrating pretty much the entire first book. And I took note of that, and I was like, come on, I just want to read some actual dialogue. I don't want to read inner dialogue. But as the trade went on, I realized that this was the style for these characters, and it was kind of their take on what was happening. So I was able to get over that, and I was fine with it.
So you don't particularly care for Kris's character design. What do you think about her character?
I like her character. Her character's cool. I mean, I thought that she was going to be hating more on Peter for a little bit longer.
I think she hasn't let it go. I think she's still... We're going to jump ahead as we talk about individual characters as this episode goes. I don't think that she lets it go. I think she just sees an opportunity to use him for her own...
I see what you're saying there, and I kind of get that same feeling.
Yeah.
I didn't expect her to change as an acquaintance as quickly.
I do remember in the second episode that you expected her to be a villain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Speaking of how she turned over quickly, I thought it was funny. When Faith comes into Kris's room or house and orders Kris to put on a tinfoil hat, that was a little ridiculous. They looked a little cartoonish to me, and I kind of half expected to see Professor Chaos from South Park to fly in and help with Faith. And now Peter has one too. It just looks ridiculous. They look like fake little yarmulkes that some kid made.
I just want to say that the first story to me, the first issue in this trade, I think is one of the best single issues that Valiant has published so far. I really like Kris's arc where I feel she's certainly in a realistic place where she hates Peter. And she makes decisions where she decides that it's better if it's like keep your enemies close. She knows that if she can control him, she can make him affect change in the world. One of the criticisms of this issue, though, that I've read on the boards and heard people say is that people think that this story is too liberal. What do you think about that?
Explain. I don't understand how this is too liberal, but...
Sure. Well, there's talk about healthcare.
I didn't really particularly get any kind of political sense from this first book coming as an outside reader. I guess supposing if, someone is a comic book fan or a Valiant fan, they may be able to read deeper into the issues that are ingrained within each story. But as for me, I take it at face value, I guess. It's at first reading. And I didn't really notice anything that was too liberal or conservative.
I personally don't view Kris as, in terms of her politics, I kind of view her as her age. I think often when we're young, we think the world is against us. And she certainly thinks that. So one of the questions I have, is Harada the evil businessman that she thinks he is?
Well, the comic is definitely going in that way. Is he evil? Again, it's still too early for me to figure that out. Because you know what they say is that if there's two opposing sides, each side thinks that they're right. So if you take this war on Afghanistan, we think we're right, and the Middle East thinks they're right. With that being said, Harada probably does not think that he is the bad guy here. He's trying to help save the world by getting Peter Stanchek into his possession, and therefore, I forget what his goal is. But by him grabbing Peter Stanchek, it will better humanity at all costs.
I think this is a really good point you're bringing up. I think comics have a tendency to make cackling villains. I think Doctor Doom and Lex Luthor, they're just mwahahaha, and they're evil for the sake of being evil. I think Joshua Dysart, what he's doing in this story, and what Valiant does in general, is they make real people and they see how they would react in real situations. I don't see Harada as evil. I see him interpreting the world through his worldview. Same with Kris. I like that.
Yeah, I don't view him as being evil. I mean, sure, he may be outwardly looking like that, but I think his ulterior motive is for the good of the planet. And he'll do whatever it takes, even though it might take destroying the planet.
I think that at this point in the story, there are times where he's drawn to look more evil than he's behaving.
With his eyes, with no pupils in his eyes, and they're kind of like flaring out.
Yeah.
Well, if we skip forward to the panels where Kris now wants to rob a bank.
Yeah, they just rob a bank. Yeah, that's not the nicest thing to do.
No. I was a little disappointed in the teller. She just walks into the bank and she says something to the effect of, "Hello, citizens of a nation with more conflicts than any other Western nation." And the very next panel, she's asking for money. And the banker just says, "Okay." What?
Because Peter is using his...
Oh, Peter's using his telepathic... Oh,
yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking there's no fight. Because if I was the banker originally, I'd be like, okay... where's your withdrawal slip? Did you write one out? No, here, let me get you one. I didn't even think of that.
When their eyes do the flary thing, that's when they're using their powers. So whenever Faith is flying, you see her eyes are lit up.
Yeah.
Same there. You see, Kris comes in, she says the line, "Who's in the background? Peter. What's his eyes doing?"
Yeah, okay. I thought they were just starting to draw them like that and say, because this is cooler looking than with pupils.
I don't really know if you actually see them like that, or if that's a way to tell the audience that they're using their powers. But I like it. It's a good cue. So did you notice that Harada looked old?
Yeah, and I thought that was another design thing that was going on.
That was not a mistake.
Yeah, as reading forward, I noticed it was not a mistake.
Yeah.
It seems like it's a ploy to make him look more frail and weak. Or is that his real body?
Yeah, so you remember in the second episode, you asked all these questions, and I was kind of... Ugh.
Yes.
So my answer to what you just asked is...
Great. So there's no answer yet.
But I think it's neat that you see him like that.
Yeah, I thought when I saw him with the liver spots on his forehead, I was like, just get your character designs together. But that was not the case. It was him just putting on a facade for people.
So the next issue focuses on Flamingo. Flamingo's a new character. Flamingo was one of the original Harbingers in the first Valiant as well. So what do you think of Flamingo?
Well, that's really jumping ahead.
Do you need to fan yourself?
Flamingo's hot, both literally and figuratively. I really like Flamingo. I hate the name. It's, as Kris says later on, it's like a person at a strip club in the 50s. I don't like the name at all. But I can understand the name because she has red hair and flamingos are, well, even though they're pink, they do have that same kind of color to her hair. So I understand why she's called Flamingo. I like calling her Charlene a little better.
Okay.
Because I just like that better than Flamingo for a name. But I really, really, really like her character. She's becoming one of my favorites in this story arc.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
She was weak, and she became strong through her powers, and she took back her life with them. I thought that was a neat little arc.
Yeah.
her getting revenge on her boyfriend.
It's
I was totally
awesome.
like, yeah, that's what that guy deserves. Yes,
Yes.
you get him.
Her power is fire, as we just mentioned. I'm not a fire guy, but this is a really cool power. Now we're getting somewhere with her. This is awesome. This whole sequence of her getting her power for the first time was just, to put it in your words, fantastic. She was set on fire and comes out with like 4th degree burns on her, which kills. And then she meets up with her boyfriend Huxley, and she sets him on fire, which is great. The dialogue in his part, which is "Help me, you set my junk on fire, you bitch." Awesome. There are 3 things about this one-word bubble. First, saying "help me" to someone who just hurt you is probably not going to work. But it's human nature to ask anyone for help, regardless of whether they hurt you or not. I mean, you're just going to ask, and you're in pain. You're going to say, "Help me, help me, help me," as a reaction. Second, the line, "You just set my junk on fire," is the funniest line I've read in this trade so far. And third, calling someone you're asking help for a bitch is probably not a good idea. This dude, he totally deserved it, and I was loving this whole sequence. Her eyes when she looks up at him right when she sets him on fire are creepy. They're drawn perfectly. I just love the way they look with the white in her eye, and she's looking right up at him. Oh man, it was awesome. And this is what I was really starting to get into it. This is what I'm like, she is awesome. I'm loving this.
What else did you like about the second issue? Did you like it better than the first?
Yes.
So I really liked the first issue. You seem to like the second one more than
You like the first one more because of Kris.
Yeah.
And her in-depth.
I guess I like geeky girls.
There's nothing wrong with geeky girls who wear glasses, but I just don't like the alien look on them. But there's nothing wrong with that. I like this one because Charlene's a new character, and they've already made her a 3-dimensional character for me. They've made her out to be some generic stripper with a traumatic background and who has a great outlook on her life at this point after she gets changed into a Psyot. Fire is perfectly symbolic of her. Not only did she apparently play with fire as a kid, and it seemingly became like a habit of her to do because she was playing with that lighter even in the strip club, but also her inner rage and torment seems to be perfectly symbolized by fire, and to have it manifest itself outward was genius. I loved it. This power is impeccable for it. It really fits her. I like it. Other things that I wanted to discuss about this book. Who's Rachel? Did I forget who she is? Is she a new character?
No, she was in the first trade.
Who is she? Totally forgot who she was.
Rachel is the one who originally picks up Peter in the van.
Oh, that's her?
Yes.
Wow. She seemed like she was going to be such a big character, and now she's already been...
She's mind messed
Yeah,
up.
she was
Yep.
mind blown.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I expected her to be some strong, like, first lieutenant type of character. No, now she's in a mental institute type of facility.
I think the strong characters you have to reserve for Ingrid and Livewire. Those are the strong female characters on Harada's side that we'll see going forward.
Which one was Ingrid again? I remember the name. Oh, Ingrid is the
older woman.
Yes, okay.
Yep. Did you notice Harada having a phone conversation in this issue, which we find out later in the trade that he's talking with somebody at Project Rising Spirit, but he mentions in it how we don't want to have another Harbinger war.
I didn't know what that meant.
Just hold on to that.
I assumed that, there was a previous Harbinger war. I don't know what that means. I'm thinking maybe a Harbinger at this point is... well, like a full-on Psyot, kind of like what Harada is.
Well, Harada has been called a Harbinger by the Bleeding Monk, and Peter has been called a Harbinger by Harada.
Okay. So, all right. So just by going off that...
I think a Harbinger is another way of saying a Psyot.
Or is Psyot some kind of, like a brown belt, so to speak, of a Harbinger?
Psyot is a new word in the Valiant universe with this incarnation. They were just referred to as Harbingers in the previous one.
Oh, okay.
So that's interesting take. I've not really thought about it that way. Anyway, Harbinger War. Yeah. Next volume, maybe?
So now I'm fast forwarding to the part where Peter has taken Charlene into the hotel or the motel, and Kris and Faith are standing outside. And Faith said something to Kris, to which Kris made a remark that where she said, "Jesus, Faith," which I thought was really funny. And right after this remark, now we jump into the room where Peter is with Charlene.
This is kind of an awkward scene.
Peter is an idiot. He thinks he's like, "Oh, Charlene, I think you have the wrong idea." Like, what else did you think, Peter? You ask a stripper whose past you looked into previously into a motel all alone without giving her any hint as to why you want to bring her into the motel, and you're surprised she has the wrong idea. You're just like, "Can you come with me into my room?" And also, you're a teenager. I'm surprised you're not even trying to go all the way first and then telling her why you're really there.
He's made that mistake already.
Yeah, I guess he has some more morals than I originally thought, or maybe he's already made a mistake that he's learned against. But no, he's how can you expect her to have any other idea of why you bring her alone into a motel room? Stupid kid. That's it for book 2 for me. Because we already spoke about freaking Flamingo's amazing firepower, which, oh man, again, as soon as I read this part, I was like, "Oh, this is awesome."
I'm so excited for your enthusiasm.
I really like her character. As soon as her Psiad ability was awoken, I don't know, for some reason, I'm not a fire guy, but still.
It's really cool to see this through fresh eyes, because I know what her powers are. So, I didn't have the moment that you had where you went, "Oh, this is going to be her powers." Very cool.
Yeah.
So then the third issue comes, and now we are introduced to the final member of the Renegades.
Oh, he's the final member.
Well, yeah.
Okay.
We're now introduced to Torque. And Torque is very different from how he was in the original Valiant universe. What do you think about Torque's character?
I didn't know what to make of Torque at first, because he was introduced in the first few pages of book 3, correct? He was in the Sea of Woe. In
Torcala.
Yeah, and I had no idea what was going on, and actually the first thing that I noticed was that they made a Kardashian reference. When I was like, why did the Kardashians really have to make it into this comic?
I didn't know what to think on this first page either, because I didn't know what was happening. I mean, I knew that this was Torque because I knew that was Torque's character design, but I didn't know what was going on at all. We later learn, of course, that he is referencing the Kardashians because he's stuck in bed all day, so he watches too much reality television.
You knew that. I did not know that.
I didn't know that. Idea. No, I did not know that until I saw him laying in the bed, because this is not in the original Valiant universe. Torque is just a strong guy. He's just a big guy who's strong. There's no psychic projection.
Oh,
that's a totally new character development. Torque was a terrible character in the original Valiant universe. He was just kind of a lunkhead. This version, he has depth. You feel bad for him, even though he says jerky things, but it's because he has no socialization. This is a much richer character.
Okay, point taken. I didn't know anything about this character when reading up upon him. I had no idea who this guy was, and I knew that at some point I'd figure out who he was, but first reading it, I'm thinking, okay, what's his deal? And he also said a line, he'd wanted to smell some sweet, sweet ass or something. I'm like, dude, last time I checked, ass is not a good smell.
Well, he's not socialized.
Yes.
My favorite line that he says is when he's in his, Torcala is it's his safe place. It's in his brain. It's where he goes to be a superhero, so that he's not stuck in bed all the time. I love the line where he's in Torcala and he's doing something cool, and he says, "And the most badass Megadeth song is playing in the background." So you're not familiar with Megadeth as a band?
I know of them, but I
Yeah.
don't listen to death metal or heavy metal.
So I remember on the boards there was a great debate over what the most badass Megadeth song was. My opinion, maybe it's not the most badass song, but the song that I heard during that is Elysian Fields. It really fit what was happening in that panel right there.
I didn't expect... I kind of looked around to see if they had maybe a title for Megadeth right around those panels, but I kind of didn't expect to see one because you can't really say what the best song is because then your fans will get pissed off.
Well, the great thing is that there was great debate over it, and people were like, well, what is the most badass Megadeth song?
But if they said exactly what they thought it was, then you're going to have people get pissed off on those boards. Kind of like Aliens versus Predator. You can't have one or the other win.
Predator
Yeah,
wins.
well, Predator wins for us, but other people say Aliens would win.
And why would Predator win for you, Nick? Because
Because
you can do an impression of Predator. There's a scene just before we meet Torque where Torque's brother comes out. Pete says to him, "Go find your feminine side."
Yeah.
And Kris has a great line there. She goes, "I'm so torn on the ethics of that." And then he comes out wearing a dress,
Yes.
which is great.
Yes. He goes from tough guy grabbing his crotch at the first sight of Charlene to getting in touch with his feminine side. The pouty look on his face was hysterical. And he comes out wearing that sundress, which is with a machine gun. Awesome. I thought that was great. He was a favorite of mine in that little area, and I was very upset that he died so quickly.
Really?
Frowny face.
Very upset?
Well, not very upset, but I was a little disappointed that he died so quickly because he was funny. He was funny. It was a nice, fun way to break the drama, and he's shot like multiple times. And right before the Jake scene, there was a scene with Livewire out in the middle of the desert.
Yep.
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. What? What was Harada?
You know, you're supposed to abbreviate that, not make it longer. WTF, man.
What was Harada doing to her? Was he invading her mind and just making her see things?
No, he said that he put her in his mind.
It's so weird.
That's so weird, I know.
She was just, after a while, she was just laying there in the fetal position.
I know, and like giant Harada was over her. It was great.
It was weird, but he turned into this weird liquid monster
I know.
that was inhaling her into his mouth. It was weird.
Yeah.
But it was cool.
Yeah.
I thought that was a neat scene.
We're definitely not done with that character with Livewire.
Oh, I'm sure not, because she seems cool. A question I had was, when Peter was looking for the actual brother that they were there for, someone was narrating. I could not grasp who was narrating.
That's Torque narrating.
How was I supposed to know that?
Because he's talking about Torcala.
Oh, okay. See, I didn't make the connection yet from that point from the beginning of the story.
That's okay, yep.
I was like, Torcala, I heard that before. Oh, I'll just keep reading, and I didn't even...
Yeah, so each book focuses on a different character. That character is essentially the narrator. We hear not their narrator, we hear their inner monologue.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that at this point. It
Yep.
took me another book or two to realize what was going on.
That's cool. I love when he gets his powers and how he just jumps out of the building.
I didn't realize that he was crippled at first. I noticed that his arms were folded. I thought that he was actually just kind of caught in the middle of doing some act, which we usually do by ourselves. So he was just trying to...
Jesus, Faith.
But I didn't realize that he was crippled. I did notice that his arms were a little frail.
So
But,
I have a comic book reading question for you.
Okay.
As I was reading this, when Torque gets his powers and he jumps out of the building and leaps onto the helicopter, this is our first splash page with multiple panels. A splash page is when a page is 1 or 2 pages big. That's a splash page. we've had splash pages where it's been one page is a panel or two pages is one panel, but this particular sequence is 5 panels. Did you know the order in which to read the panels?
No.
No.
I read it wrong,
You
actually.
did read it wrong.
Yes.
Interesting. So you're supposed to read the top 3 and then the big picture as the 4th panel and then the picture off to the right as the 5th.
I didn't do that.
So you read the top panel and then you went down to the big picture and then you went up to these two?
Yes. And it was a little jarring at first, but then I was like, "Oh, okay, I got to read it this way first." And then I read the whole page again. Because then I'm thinking, "Oh, okay, this makes a lot more sense."
Interesting.
Now.
I'm going to ask you questions like this as we go on, because trades, it's a little harder to know because the binding doesn't allow you to see that the panel carries on to the next page.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Which, if I spread it further apart than I'm comfortable with, you can see. And when you have a comic book that's just 32 pages and stapled, you can see that a little bit better. So trades are not always the greatest for splash pages. Also, you lose a little bit of art in the crease. In this particular instance, his arm doesn't look quite right because you lose some art in the crease. But cool.
We're looking at that panel too. We see John in the shell of Torque, and it was at this point I didn't know if he was projecting himself as Torque and kind of turned into Torque, or if he had kind of like an avatar.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what was going on.
Nobody did, because Torque was different than he had been in the original universe. So there was a lot of debate over that. And Dysart answers the question pretty quickly because Peter says that it's a psychic projection or some sort.
Yes.
But it's kind of like a shell. That's how I interpret it. He's inside this shell of a larger.
But does he fabricate it from his mind?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
He's actually embodied within this giant body.
Peter uses the word psychic to describe it. So it's got to be through his brain.
Maybe
somehow.
it's something like what Harada did with the wolf. When he turned himself into a wolf.
It might be, yeah. And that's the guy he wants to be. He wants to be that bro, Hey, bro. That he wants to be that guy.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
I'll go with that for now, until they say something else, if anything.
Then we begin the 4th issue in this, which is issue 9. And this is the issue that focuses on Faith. We get a little bit more in depth on Faith. I'm going to state again that Faith is
your favorite character?
One of my most favorite characters, yeah.
In all comic book history.
In all of comic book history. So how are you feeling about Faith?
Her backstory is really interesting, and it's starting to make me like her character even more. I still kind of like Flamingo a little more at this point, but okay. I still... Knowing her backstory is really giving me some introspective onto who she is and why she is the way she is, and it's really interesting. And actually, I really liked that Star Trek picture. It was a neat way of showing the history she had with her family in just one shot. Yeah, which was great.
What I really liked is the scene with the long boxes of comics.
Yes.
And that's how she connected to who her parents were, is she went through all these comics that belonged to them, and her way of connecting with them was to be like them, to be geeky and nerdy like them. It's very sweet.
Yes, it is.
Faith is a very sweet character. You see it when she's trying to connect to her parents like that. You see it with how she behaves with her grandmother.
I did notice, though, that in that picture, she was wearing a red shirt.
Oh, is that foreboding?
Exactly.
I'm sorry. Is that foreshadowing?
Is that foreshadowing? Exactly. I was sure it's not, but I just found it funny that Faith was wearing the red shirt.
Is Faith delusional?
It's delusional?
Yeah. Well, there's the scene at the end of this issue where she says, "This is reality. And this is how I see it." And she's drawn in an anime style, and there's all these hearts around her.
Oh, that was a funny panel. I wouldn't say that she's delusional in that sense. She knows reality.
Okay.
She's not totally out there like Joe was. Joe was, well, in my opinion, from even the last episode we spoke about Joe, I thought he was a little crazy, and those pills kind of kept him in check. But I thought that he was a little more delusional than she is. She's aware of reality. What we learned in her backstory is how to take all the bad things in stride and see the good in things. And I think that's how she has an outlook on life.
How can she be so righteous? Like, she is so good. I mean, even to the color uniform that she picks at the end of the story, she's the only one who's wearing white, you know.
Well, that was just by coincidence.
Well, no. It's her character design.
Well,
she's
right,
wearing the purest color because she's pure. She's the purest of them. Is she unrealistic?
I think she is as pure as the way she is because she has been treated like crap all of her life. And this is the first time she's actually getting things her way, and she's happy.
And she's totally getting them her way because she wants to be a superhero.
Yes.
Like, that's the thing that is the coolest to her.
She's never been so happy, and it almost seems like it doesn't matter. Right,
to the point where, like, they're robbing a bank, and she's like, guys, she doesn't really want to do it, but she kind of ignores it so that she can, because she wants to hold on to being a superhero.
Yeah.
Do you think Faith is in love with Peter, or do you think she's just crushing?
I think she's crushing.
Yeah.
I don't think she really she doesn't know him enough yet. All he did was waken up her latent powers. She hasn't given herself enough time yet to really know how she feels about him. I don't even think Peter knows who he likes, if anybody. He thinks he likes Kris, but that's just because
that's the girl he liked when he was growing up.
Right, that's it.
Yeah. I definitely think that Faith is the soul of the group.
Yeah, absolutely. She's the one that's keeping it all. She's the glue that keeps them all together.
Well, I think that Kris is sort of glue in the smarts way. I think she's the brains, but I think that Faith is the soul. Did you notice there's a machine that Peter's hooked up to because he gets captured at the beginning of the story, and he's hooked up to a machine. Did you notice what that machine looked like?
No.
Probably not. The machine that he's hooked up to looks exactly like the machine that the bleeding monk was hooked up to in the first trade.
Oh, no, I did not notice that.
I think that that's pretty neat.
That's interesting as well.
It is interesting because Tull is part of Project Rising Spirit. Harada is his own group. They don't seem to like each other, yet they have the same technology. And then we get a scene where Kris is making connections to Project Rising Spirit and Harada.
When we get into that scene where Peter is hooked up to that machine and he's dead behind the eyes, he's drooling and everything, and Tull starts talking to him. Tull, to me, was extremely interesting in this sequence because his backstory is actually intriguing as he has no background in a way. So his background is interesting. His only reason for existing is to chase Peter. So what would happen to Tull once Peter is permanently caught? What's his purpose in life if everything of his memory has been stripped except for that of Stanchek? It's an interesting conundrum that one like Tull would have to face, and it's quite daunting. When he catches Stanchek is kind of depressing because he would have nothing to live for. But then again, he has no emotions, so he doesn't care. All he knows is to keep looking. It's pretty deep for a guy who has no history.
Yeah, I think that Dysart does a really good job exploring this blank character. I got to be honest, when we were first introduced to him in the first trade, I also thought that he's just going to be a one-off guy that, we weren't really going to see him again.
Yeah.
And I like how in the last issue there's this scene where Peter says to Tull, "Yeah, you're my dad." And Tull goes, "What?" And you can see like this look on his face. And Peter goes, No, I'm just joking. It's like, what a terrible thing to do to this guy, to say that.
Yeah, because Tull looked he had a whole mix of emotions in that one panel. He looked happy, distraught, confused, a whole bunch of things, which is actually pretty impressive to do in a drawing.
So do you think that he survived? Because
well,
the two helicopters crashed into each other, didn't they?
Yeah, but I feel like, he was supposed to have died in the first trade, but then they brought him back, and his character seems too deep.
Okay.
To me, to die that easily. Especially since Peter said he's his dad. And I know he was joking there, but maybe there's some truth behind it.
So Faith has saved Peter twice now. Where would he be without her?
He would be 6 feet under right now.
6 feet under, yeah. I just love how she's this fat girl who's lighter than air. and all she can do is fly and maybe have a little bit of telepathy, and she has saved the day twice.
I'm beginning to see why you like her a lot.
So then we get to the final issue, and this issue focuses on Peter. By the end of this story, do you think that Peter's likable yet?
Yeah, he's a lot more likable in this one than the other one. He wasn't as much of a jerk in this one. Yeah, sure, he was still... I mean, this time he's starting to reflect on himself a little bit, and he's like, oh, man, I got all these guys in my mess, and now they might be paying with their lives. I'm going to try to separate myself with them. I don't want to. I want to be with them, but it's going to be ultimately their decision. And he leaves it up to them, and they all want to be with him, and he seems to be truly humbled by that. And he seems to have matured quite a bit.
Do you forgive him yet for his actions in the first book?
No.
Good. Because I don't either.
Yeah, just because he seems to have changed doesn't mean that whatever he did in the past is still forgivable.
He still does some kind of jerky things in this. I do agree with you that I see the potential in him to grow and be better. I'm still not convinced at this point in the story that he's the good guy and that Harada is the bad guy. I like the opening page where he's in the dream state and the bleeding monk is contacting him.
Yeah.
And the bleeding monk says, Go west, Peter. Yes. So just hold on to that.
Oh, yeah, no. I know that that's some kind of a precursor to something.
My favorite quote in this trade also comes in this issue. I love when Kris says, we die plotting. You know, they're being attacked. They're being taken in by PRS, and Charlene says, "What are we going to do?" And she says, "We die plotting."
Oh, yes, yes.
I also like the carryover from the first Bloodshot trade. Torque and Charlene are wearing the same helmets that Pulse was wearing, the dampener helmet.
Oh, right, yeah.
So that was a nice touch. Nice touch to see continuity in the universe.
You know, yeah, and actually I noticed that, but I just kind of thought, okay, I saw those from the last Harbinger book.
Correct me if I'm wrong. When Flamingo, when they're falling out of the helicopters, and she uses fire to slow her descent, that was a pretty neat moment. And she lands and she says, Isaac Newton in the house.
Yeah.
And then Torque, who should have landed first because there was nothing slowing his descent, hits the ground after she does.
Did he jump out last?
Did he jump out last? I don't know.
It looked like to me that they jumped out. She and Kris jumped out first.
Okay. But still, like, she slowed her descent. There was nothing slowing his descent. So wouldn't he have hit first?
Well, it all depends on how long he jumped out.
I guess. To me, I was like Isaac Newton in the house, and then what I interpreted as a breaking of the laws of gravity right afterwards. But that's minor; it's not important. The fight with PRS, with Project Rising Spirit in the helicopter was brutal. You know, Torque is ripping limbs off of people.
Oh yeah,
that
was nasty.
It is not a superhero fight in any sense. Well, I really liked how brutal it was. These people have just got powers; they don't know how to use them, and they're ripping limbs off of people. It was.
Yeah,
I wonder if they have repercussions in their brains about that. You know, in their psyche.
Yeah. Oh,
because I mean, it was a brutal fight, and it was drawn that way. It was very good.
Even Peter, who seemed remorseful that he had to kill people, makes these guys kill each other. It actually surprised me because I felt like he felt bad that he had to kill people, and then all of a sudden, just before he jumps out of the plane, he says, "Okay, you guys kill each other now," and the other guy says, "I'm so sorry." Boom.
He's still not doing the right thing.
No, still not doing the right thing, but he's a lot better than last trade.
Easter eggs? So I just have two. In the first issue in the trade, Faith cusses in Chinese.
Yeah, what was that all about? I thought that was just gibberish.
No? You remember Firefly?
Yes. I only watched it once. But yes,
you did. Did you watch the series?
Yes.
So you remember that their two languages that they spoke were English and Chinese?
Yes.
So whenever they swore, they would swear in Chinese.
I vaguely remember that.
So if you type that in a Google search engine...
Which I almost did.
If you type that in a Google search engine, it will bring you to this awesome website that is, I think, the 13th or 13 or 30 best swears in Firefly. And this particular swear means Holy Mother of God and all her wacky nephews.
That is something that Faith would say, too.
Yeah. So that was a great moment. In the Faith-centric issue, she's on her bed. She's reading a bunch of comics. One of the comics is Turok.
I noticed that, too.
That was awesome.
I was scrutinizing over those comic books, and I wanted to have a magnifying glass because I could barely see, but I finally found Turok on there. But for the other franchises, there was like X Guys or Powerful Woman instead of Superwoman. There were a few others.
Yeah, they sure did write Turok on the cover, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought that was neat.
Yeah, I liked it. Judgy part of the show? I have a feeling, Nick, that you and I are going to pick the same cover.
I have two covers here.
Okay, what are your two
that
covers?
I really like.
Yeah.
For some stupid reason, I like this boring one here. Number 7.
So you like the Harbinger number 7, the Lupacino incentive variant cover, which is it's the picture of Charlene just with her headshot.
Right. It's just that one, or it's the really crazy one. The one that looks like it was drawn on line paper.
That's the Jeff Lemire cover to number 8, the 1 and 125 line variant. A very rare cover. Actually, the Lupacino one is also very rare. They're both very rare covers. I don't have either of them. Which one's your favorite of the two?
I'm going to go with this one. This one being...
The Jeff Lemire cover.
Yeah, the Jeff Lemire cover. Because it's so different and cool, and it's just a doodle.
It is, yeah.
And that's really awesome. That's not a typical cover, and it's really cool, so I like it.
Lemire does books for DC and Image, and I think he draws the book he does for Image. I'm not really sure. I think the book he does for Image is called Chew. I've not read it. This is also my favorite cover. I have this cover on a t-shirt.
Cool.
I love this cover. It's great. There's a lot to look at. It's a 1 in 125 line variant, which is different than a 100 and 125 variant. So you don't have to buy 125 issues of Harbinger number 8 to get one of these. You have to buy 125 Valiant comics that month to get one of these.
Oh my god.
That's what the line variant is. Well, a comic book shop can do that.
Oh right. I'm thinking of an individual person.
No, not an individual person. Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely my favorite cover.
The thing is, who is that character?
That's Peter.
Oh, that's Peter. See, again.
Yeah, his character design has. I said this to you in the first episode that it's going to change, and it kind of and it kind of solidifies going forward a little bit.
Yeah.
So
that's my favorite. I really also like this Charlene one.
It's very pretty. I like the headshot covers. They did a bunch of them for Harbinger. So we got the Torque one, and we'll see more going forward.
And the other thing
we had the Peter one in the first trade. Yep.
The other thing that I really liked about these covers, which I actually didn't realize until I was looking in the back of the trade, was how there's a bunch of them just make one giant landscape of this war.
Yeah, so that's those 4 covers make up one picture.
I thought that was really, really neat concept.
It is very, very neat. Yeah,
I like it when companies do something like that, where like on DVDs, if it's a series, they have on the spine it makes up of an image.
Yeah. This was Valiant's first foray into doing a cover that went over several issues. They do it again going forward. There'll be a couple more times.
I also did notice that Torque looks like Freddy Krueger to me.
He's a little messed up in the face. So now we got to talk about if we liked it.
Yeah.
I feel like you hated this, Nick.
I absolutely hated this. No, I didn't. Actually, the first issue, I wasn't really feeling it much as I was hoping for.
Because you just don't like Kris.
No, it's not that I don't. I like her character. I just don't like her design.
Okay.
It's the art was just really, really. It was making it
just
so
wasn't
hard
working
for me.
You, yeah.
It was making it real hard for me to get past just looking at that.
Okay.
So again, once I was able to get over that, I was able to actually enjoy the story more, and I was really, really, really liking this, and it's solidifying its place for me in each storyline for where I like it. It's how I like Bloodshot first, and this one second. Man, it's still a tough. Like those two are tied because I really like this franchise. I'm gonna call it a franchise. I kind of like how Peter is playing a Spartacus type role. Peter parallels Spartacus because Peter's a lone guy. He's building an army to go after a seemingly unbeatable force. And that's what Spartacus did. Spartacus built an army against the Roman Empire. And I'm really digging this story, and Charlene, my favorite so far.
Great. Yeah, this trade is really good. I really enjoyed my reread of it. This was my 4th time reading this story. It's so good. I really like how each issue focuses on a different character. You get those characters fleshed out. Oftentimes in team books, in comics, everybody knows what Wolverine is about. Everybody knows what motivates Beast. Well, what's going on with Cyclops? He's boring. In this story, every character got a chance to shine, and I really like that.
Yeah, I like that too. I
highly recommend it. Again, you get 5 issues in this trade, which is nice.
For $10, which is a good buy.
No, it's not $10. No, they only did $10 for the first volumes of the trades. No, this is $15.
Oh, okay.
It's still less than the comics cost
individually.
So it is a good buy in that sense.
I almost feel like we're doing a commercial for them each time at this section, because you're like, it's only $10. It's a good buy. Go get it.
Well, maybe I am doing a commercial for them because I like their stuff. Here's my totally selfish reason for doing this podcast. Are you ready? I want to do this podcast. Well, besides spending time with my friend, I want to do this podcast because I want to encourage people to read these books because they're making good stories, and I want them to continue to make good stories. And if they continue to exist as a company, then I can continue to read good stories. And if they don't exist as a company, I can't read their stories anymore. I was critical in the last issue.
I know. I know. You're the last issue, you're like,
I mildly recommend this one. So the next episode will be what? Our 8th episode?
Yes.
Great. And we will be doing
Bloodshot, yay!
Bloodshot Volume 2.
I've been waiting for Bloodshot for quite a while. He looks like a vampire still. You know what this kind of reminds me of is that scene in Samurai X, right at the beginning when Kenshin kind of just takes a sword and jabs it through the guy's throat, and the guy's kind of crawling out. Except in this case, the sword is a gun. But I've been waiting for the Bloodshot one for a while, so this is cool.
So, the next episode will be The Rise and the Fall, where we discuss Bloodshot Volume 2. I just want to let people know that I'm going to be going to Hartford Comic Con. I'm going to be going on June 1st. If anybody is in the area, I suggest you go. Dave Johnson, who's a cover artist for Shadow Man, is going to be there. He's going to have a panel. Clayton Henry, who is the artist from the first trade of Archer and Armstrong, and we later see his work in Harbinger, will be there. And Ron Mars, who was a writer on the original X-O Man of War series, will also be there. So 3 Valiant connections, and I will be there on Sunday. You can follow us on Twitter at VE Podcast. You can email us. We'd love to get emails. Our email address is vepodcast@gmail.com. And our website is vepodcast.wordpress.com. And I said it right this time. I've been saying it wrong in this and other venues, so I'm very pleased that I said it right. I also have another podcast that I just started. It's called Gold Key Future. It's through the Cultural Wormhole Network. And we discuss the Gold Key books that are being produced by Dynamite. And whether you like the Gold Key books or you don't like them, please listen because I have strong opinions. So,
you an opinionated person? I would have never guessed.
Never, no, not me.
All right, well, I look forward to reading Bloodshot. I've been kind of waiting for this one for quite a while, as well as Harbinger. So I think these two are the cream of the. Wow. You're going to say creme de la creme. I was going to say cream of the crop.
Well, I'm a little fancier, and I say things in a different language than you.
Nannin kurasan ga imasu ka? Speaking of different languages.
I don't know what that means.
The correct answer would be 2人.
I agree.
That's my Japanese for the day, so figure out what that means. I'm not going to tell you what the answer is.
Thanks for listening.
Bye. And I had no idea what was going on. And actually, the first thing that I noticed was that they made a Kardashian reference. When I was like, why did the Kardashians really have to make it into this comic? It's bad enough I had to deal with them at my previous job all the time, but they've intruded almost every other aspect of society. For what? What are they famous for? I didn't expect to see the Kardashians on here. Might as well add something in about Paris Hilton or Honey Boo Boo in here, too. That's what I'm thinking.
Wow, that's a rant.
Well, Kardashians, like, I did not expect to see Kardashians in a Valiant comic.
Prepare, little town. Prepare for the greatest supervillain you've ever seen. Professor K.